The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Well, good morning and happy Saturday, everyone. I'm Rick Sense and joined with co-host today, Terry Pinch. And you're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY. Terry, how's your week been?
It has been excellent. We had a luncheon to celebrate the combination of the Green Bay and Fox City SCORE chapters in the SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. It was my first time out since I had the knee surgery, and that was quite good to actually do it. And we had a lot of fun meeting people we hadn't met or talked to much before. So it's been a really good week.
Great. Well, listeners, I'm really excited about this week's show. We have a very special guest, and I'm not going to waste too much time with a big, long introduction because I'd really like to plow that time back into the show. But we have Dan Ariens, who is CEO of AriensCo, with us this morning to talk about all things Ariens and an exciting event that's coming up on November 13th out at the Ariens Nordic Center in Brillion. So, Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rick and Terry. Nice to meet you. Appreciate being here with you today.
Well, I'm going to start off with the question that you probably have had a million times, Dan, but I apologize. But 91 years. Right. AriensCo has been in existence, and growth has been dramatic from the origins of the business in the family garage. What insights could you provide to listeners to maybe walk us through some of the experiences you've had at AriensCo for these last 91 years?
Well, I've had a lot of experiences, and it's a roller coaster, right? And that's kind of the journey of life. It's the journey of a business life. And, just to take you on that very short journey, but Henry Ariens actually arrived in Brillion 131 years ago, and he started the Brillion Iron Works, brought his blacksmithing skills to a foundry and built the ironworks, and then in the Depression lost that in 1933. So as you say, Rick, 91 years ago, in his garage, he took a lathe and started making the first rear tine rotary tiller for a single man to operate. And I look back at those roots of Henry not quitting as part of this, roller coaster journey that I think businesses go on all the time. And one part about Ariens that's unique to a lot of other businesses, and I have a lot of friends that operate their businesses, we're very seasonal, right? So we depend on the weather to be our friend. And that's not always nice weather. It's just friendly weather is a big snowstorm and lots of rain to make the grass grow.
And I have to let listeners know, before we started, we were talking about early snowstorms already happening up in Minnesota. And there was a lot of excitement in Dan's voice when he was hearing about it and talking about it. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what quality has played the biggest role in the success at Ariens over the years?
I liken it to just grit. The fact that Henry, I always think back at, here is a guy who was about my age. I'm in my 60s now, loses the ironworks in the Depression. He actually cashed in his life insurance policy at 60. Okay, the life insurance may not be the most important thing. You're not in your 40s raising children, but he cashed that in so he could make his last payroll to the employees that were going to lose their job. And that, to me, that's an entrepreneur. And I've recently heard Elon Musk talk about the challenges of being, an entrepreneur. And that, to me, that's Henry. And I stand on that foundation all the time. And I think that the biggest role is learning that you just never quit, right? Grit is about finding a way to win.
So that, in addition to grit, what else has led to the longevity at Ariens?
Well, we're family, we're private. I think if I were a public company, when I have to show ugly results during a quarter, I just make sure I'm close to our bankers and close to our employees and our executive team and close to all the people that care about our business most. Those are real stakeholders for us. if I have shareholders from New York or LA or Miami or, Dallas, they don't care as much about what we do here in Brilliant. So family and private.
Okay. So being the fourth generation Ariens family leader at AriensCo, is there a pressure that you have as that CEO with that background that maybe another CEO out there can't understand?
That's an interesting question. First is I don't know it any different, right? So I don't know. But I will say that, when your name's on the building and it's on the paycheck and it's on the literature and it carries, everywhere, we ship product, which is around the world. There's a degree of responsibility that comes with that, and you could call it pressure. But I don't think of it as pressure as much as just, my father said something to me many years ago. I was in my probably early 40s or 30s, late 30s. And, he was at the end of his career and I was starting to take over. And he just kind of said something like, at the end of the day, this is all about the family. He was working for, not himself, not for his own personal gain. It was about, what he needed to do for the family, for the community, for the business.
Okay.
Many businesses start out as families, but over time, usually by third generation, they start to pass things along. Your business has been extremely strong and family oriented and looks to continue that in the future. And you stayed in Brilliant and built a business. What's been so different about Ariens that you think makes it so successful?
I don't know. I think, our vision statement I wrote with our executive team back in the very late 1990s when I took over as our CEO. And, I think that speaks to us as a company. And it's, the vision is not like many businesses, right? Our vision statement is very, very simple. It's passionate people, ... astounded customers. And the intent there is, I like very simple statements that say an awful lot and leave some interpretation. But this one is, I want people to come to work for Ariens Company that really like this business. And if you don't like this business, then I think you're going to be a happier person in the rest of your life's journey if you're not making lawnmowers, but you're doing something that really makes you passionate. And yesterday I bumped into an employee. I did not realize it was her 45th anniversary yesterday. I gave her a hug and she said to me, I'm going to be the first woman that's with the company for 50 years. And she's a very good employee. She's still, her knowledge of this business is so strong. She can teach me a lot of things about the business today. She started before I started. She's been here longer than I have. And I think that's what makes Ariens different. It's not just me and the family passion. It's all the people that work here that just love this business.
And does some of that come from being in Brilliant too? Is this the small town atmosphere there?
Yeah, I think that being rural, being, on our own island out here, we are able to really just keep an eye on the culture of this business, and the culture is about the people that are here. And the other part of that vision statement is astounding our customers is very intentional. Like we know that out here on our little island in Brilliant, Wisconsin, we've got to do better than somebody in, Minneapolis or Minnesota or Chicago. We compete with, Japanese, Chinese, European, and U.S. manufacturers that make power equipment. And little old Brilliant, Wisconsin, we hold our own. We can stand up against anybody.
You mentioned some of the products there with the lawnmowers, especially Dan. And people in the area, most of them know the product line of Ariens. And I know I love my snow throw. And Packer fans also know you for the Ariens Hill up in Green Bay. But besides that, would you share with listeners maybe the things that Ariens Company makes and what you prioritize as a company? Maybe just kind of zone in on that for a little bit.
Sure, Rick. Yeah, our snow throw is really the best known product we have. It only represents, and this year it's going to be down, so it's less than 20% of our business. Might be closer to 15. this year. We make zero turns mowers for residential homeowners, and we brand the residential product as Ariens because it just ties into the snow blowers we make professional blowers and residential snow blowers, but the volume is really residential product. But then our about 50% of our business in the equipment side is our brand called Gravely. And we manufacture very, very high end commercial mowers, as much as 40 horsepower, 72-inch cuts that are used at cities, municipalities, large landscape companies, and we ship those all over North America. We export some of those to Europe. We sell a lot of those in Australia, believe it or not. And we're starting to really expand now that they're accepting zero turn in South America. We're expanding into South America. So, and a lot of people don't know we make like a small skid steer loader, something you stand on with a bucket and use for landscape construction projects. We make a thing called a Mammoth, which is a 4-wheel drive stand-on product, about 38 horsepower engine snowblower. And if you put a snowblower on this Mammoth product, we call it, it will throw snow about 70 yards. It's a beast. But you can put brine down, you can put salt down, you can plow the snow with this. There's 2 different kinds of snowblower heads on it, a power broom. So it's really a very useful tool that a lot of people don't know we make that. It's my favorite product, to be honest.
When you start making them for home use, let me know. I'll be first in line to buy one.
I use one at home, Rick.
Okay.
But I would be very careful with the chute. You don't want to put it in your neighbor's yard.
Yeah. Okay. So, what things does Ariens Company do that fly under most people's radar, Dan? I know there's a lot of cool things. I think of New York and what you're doing there, and maybe you could share some of that with listeners.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. We, the Ariens Family Foundation we do try and keep that sort of under the radar. Right here in Brillion, we've been, very instrumental in our schools, our high schools, grade schools, and elementary school. We've built their STEM education program here, and that's now, we're almost 20 years in building STEM education in Brillion. Of course, you mentioned Ariens Hill. That's not as sort of under the radar. That's pretty out there. New York, people don't know, but Ground Zero, we are cleaning all the walks there. They use only Ariens product there for sweeping snow off those streets in New York City. Our Gravely brand, people don't really know as much because it's such a professional product. But we have been the grass mower from everything. We're not today. I'll just say we've been at the White House. We're at Congress. We're doing Central Park. We're doing lots of different areas that Chicago, we're doing the major parks in Chicago. So we're in a lot of places, and I'll say this is not under the radar, but it's kind of fun for me. When there's a big snowstorm, every time you open up, if there's a big snowstorm in Boston or New York or Chicago, they're going to show a snowblower. It's always going to be an Ariens, and that's always kind of fun.
In the same kind of approach, I mean, you have the large base of business here in the United States. Is it the same overseas? Do you have a large international market as well?
Yeah, we are growing that. We just acquired a German manufacturing company called AS Motor, very high-end specialized mowing equipment. And we have a plant in Southeast Germany in the Stuttgart area, I guess would be the easiest way to explain it. So that was a big acquisition for us, maybe one of the biggest in our history. That more than doubled our European footprint. And from that footprint, we are going to grow. We have a very significant growth plan for that business, going into 25 and 26, 2025, 6. So.
Okay. We're at the spot for our first break. You are listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we will be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score. I'm Rick Sense, and with co-host Terry Bitch this morning. And our special guest is Dan Ariens from AriensCo. But before we get back to our conversation with Dan, I'd just like to take a few moments to talk to you about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. SCORE Northeast Wisconsin serves a 15-county area with offices in Appleton, Oshkosh, and Fond du Lac and Green Bay. We also represent the Menominee County area of Michigan. We have more than 50 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, and they offer entrepreneurs no cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, human resources, retail best practices, and many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost, confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about the SCORE Northeast Wisconsin chapter, visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. And to support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Fox Cities, click on the volunteer button and fill out the short application, and we'll get back to you to explain more. So now back to the program. So Terry, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. In the first segment, we did talk about Ariens being located in Brillion, a small town, a very nice town, but has there ever been any thought or consideration to moving Ariens to a much larger market or a different location?
Fair question, Terry. I can actually think of two times where we actually debated that. And one is, Gravely, I mentioned our commercial brand. When we bought that business in 1982, it was located in Clemens, North Carolina, Winston-Salem area between, in the triangle. And I was actually working there. I was a young man. My first job was down in North Carolina. About 10 years after that, 1992, we needed to consolidate. The plant we had in North Carolina was about the same footprint of one of the buildings here in Brillion. And there was at the time discussion, well, if we're going to move that, do we consider moving Ariens, our headquarters, down to North Carolina versus keeping it in Brillion? So that was 1992, and the decision, you can see, is obvious. We ended up closing the plant in Clemens, North Carolina. And then I guess there would have been one other time, but it was just a passing thought that one of our challenges up here in Northeast Wisconsin is finding employees. And we really had a growth spurt from about 2017 to into the pandemic, which really expanded our demand, and we ran out of capacity here. We've recently opened a building down in Tennessee, in Fayetteville, Tennessee, and the building there is about 600,000 square feet. We have a lot of room that we can grow into down there. And the big difference was we can find a lot of labor available in that location. And it's now a year plus that we've been in that building. I don't see us moving, but I just know that we now have capacity in another location.
As a manufacturer in Wisconsin, and we hear this through SCORE a lot, where when unemployment gets down to 1.5% or 2%, you are doing some pretty unique things to help develop some of that skill set and brilliance. So the STEM program, for example, that you talked about earlier, as you have been working since '92 on building the workforce, how successful have you been in building the skills you need, because skills have changed over that period of time? I'd give us a very high mark in terms of, a grade score on our training development. And part of it just starts with safety, right? If we
We know that we have to have a safe manufacturing environment. And then we know that, young people are changing and what they expect in manufacturing is different. And so we just finished about a year ago a very significant investment in our plants to automate a lot of what we do. And just to use this as an anecdotal example, I took a friend through the plant one yesterday, zero turn plant, and after his walk through, he was like, I cannot believe this is in Brillion, Wisconsin. And, automated vehicles that move parts around, 12K or 14K lasers that cut steel to where you can hardly follow the bead, robotic welding, paint system that's state of the art, and then to assembly stations that are, ergonomically designed for people to build very efficiently and productively. So that's what we do, right? We continue to train to that standard and continue to improve on that.
And I don't know if a lot of people know, but Wisconsin has probably the highest employment rate for manufacturing, and especially this part of Wisconsin and across the United States. So there is a strong manufacturing mindset here. And I'm sure that must help too.
Helps a lot, Terry. And that's so down in Tennessee, to use that as an example, we found one interesting thing, which is in this area of Tennessee, there are a lot of very good welders, and we are trying to figure out, didn't know it when we picked the site location, but we're finding they walk in the door and they're ready to go to work as really good welders. They don't have the depth of assemblers and the depth of sort of sheet metal fabrication we need. But welding up here tends to be one of the most sought after jobs. So it's an interesting, I just think Northeast Wisconsin is blessed with generations of, whether it's farming and rural, but just manufacturing skills that have been developed in households and home, dad with a workshop teaching, boys and girls how to build things.
Okay. So we're at a point where we're going to be taking our second break. We'd like to thank all our listeners. Again, you're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm your host, Rick Sense, along with Terry Pinch, my co-host this week. And we're talking with Dan Ariens of AriensCo, and we're going to turn it over to Terry for just a brief education update from Score.
All right. First of all, because we've had our recent merger, our website has changed, and it's score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, all one word. Okay? And if you go to that website, up on the top of the page, there's a workshops and seminars tab. Click on that tab, and you're going to find literally hundreds of webinars and events and activities, most of which will be free. And you can learn a lot of different things you need to know about for small business. I'm going to mention two events that are coming up in the next couple of weeks that might be of interest to people. The first one is on November 12th. It's time management strategies for small business owners. It's free. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern, so 12 o'clock Central. It's a very useful event. I'll tell you, in my career, it really took me figuring out how to manage my time properly before I could really focus and do a good job as a manager. But it's something you should really think about and consider. So again, it's time management strategies for small business owners, November 12th at 1. The very next day, on November 13th, we've got beneficial ownership reporting under the Corporate Transparency Act. Now that may sound extremely boring, but it is really, really important for if you own an LLC. In 2021, the U.S. Congress passed a law that all LLCs must register. And this was because there was no way of tracking who owned an LLC. You could do it at the state level, but the federal government had no records of who owned an LLC. So companies would go out and have 85 LLCs, and you could never track who the beneficial owner was. Well, they've now passed a law, and you must register by January 1st, 2025, or you could possibly be fined very heavily, and you'll have to deal with the law enforcement component of the IRS. Now, they're not going to go out after everybody, but sooner or later, if you have a tax issue or something happens, they can follow up with you. It's free to register. It's not hard to do, but it's one of those things, just go do it. Register your LLC. And this will talk you through what the issues are and how to do it. So it's beneficial ownership reporting under the Corporate Transparency Act, and it's 1 o'clock on November 13th, and it's free. So those are the things you remember. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, and you'll find all the different webinars and events that are out there. So, Rick, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Terry. Dan, we talked earlier a little bit about the things that Ariens is known for and maybe some things that you do that fly under the radar. One of the things that's really been exciting for those of us down in the valley near Calumet County has been the addition of the Ariens Nordic Center. It's just been a wonderful addition to Brillion in the area, and it's such a world-class venue. If people haven't been there, I would encourage you strongly to go out and take in an event or participate in some of the activities that take place out there. But can I ask, what led to the development of the Ariens Nordic Center? And what is it, maybe, if you could explain exactly what it is?
Yeah, maybe I should start with what it is. The Ariens Nordic Center is a biathlon, Olympic training, and competitive cross-country trail, Nordic skiing, and biathlon shooting at targets, right? So the sport is in Europe is a very top sport. As a matter of fact, in winter, biathlon is the number one viewed Olympic or Nordic ski sport. And then, of course, every 4 years it goes to the Olympics. We are a snowblower manufacturer, as people know, and one of those little known things is we're the number one selling snowblower in Norway, in the Alps, in different parts of the snow regions, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, the French Alps. Our Ariens snowblowers are everywhere. So we became a sponsor of the U.S. biathlon ski team. Two of the athletes are from the Wisconsin area. I happened to meet them, Deidre Irwin and Paul Schomer, and they both were at the Chinese Olympics. But before they even got to China, we started to get to know them and the team. And as a sponsor, we went to some of the competitive events in Germany and Austria and Norway, up in Oslo. And it's just a very exciting sport, and it's fun to be at. And we had the benefit of meeting these young athletes and getting to see how hard they work for this sport, which is sort of in the U.S. fairly unknown. So in one of our dinners, I asked the president of U.S. Biathlon, I said, where do these young people train in the United States? He said, well, they got to get sponsored, and most of them come here to Europe to train. I said, okay, well, if they're going to be in the U.S., how do we develop our team? And he said, there's only two really, or you could say three places where we have venues that are capable of training year round. And I can explain that in a minute, but they're in Stowe, Vermont, in Lake Placid, New York, and in Park City, Utah. And so I immediately said, there's nothing in the Midwest. And they said, no, there's nothing in the Midwest. Lots of ski, the Birkebeiner, Northern Michigan, lots of places to ski, but not competitively ski and race and compete, and nowhere to really, shoot at targets with a true biathlon venue. So that's what led to us building it. Now, good news, we're a private company. I don't think there's a public company in their right mind would ever tell their shareholders they're going to do something like this. And that comes back to, trying to build up Brillion. And I mentioned year round. So to be a year round Nordic training facility, you have to have asphalt trails. Because they roller ski, and they tell us the best winter Olympians are made in the summer, training on roller skis. And it's not if you haven't done it on a flat surface, it's a very challenging, difficult role to ski on roller skis on asphalt. And then if they would do it in any other area, they might go across roads, right? Well, you have uneven surfaces, you have potholes, you have cars, you have all kinds of obstacles. So to summarize, we're the we'd like to think that now that we built this, that someday the Ariens Nordic Center will produce a biathlete that's going to be competing in the Olympics.
Exciting. So you developed the center, and there's other things that Ariens is doing as well. But before I get to that, you also had an event this summer, which I had the good fortune to be able to attend. Really enjoyed. It was part of the NFL draft, the 2025 draft event, with it coming in the spring next year. You hosted country music legend Jason Aldean, and are there plans to maybe do more of that kind of venue at the Nordic Center?
There are visions of that. I would not say we're at the planning stage yet. This concert was a test for us. It was a way to celebrate the draft coming to Green Bay and the Packers. It was a way for us to introduce the facility to a lot of people who have never seen Brillion, let alone the Ariens Nordic Center. And where we hosted Jason and put the stage was right on the shooting range for the shooting gallery. The result was, other than the weather, which you were there, Rick, we had sort of a drizzly rain all day, all night. But some people told me it felt like, well, this is like a Packer event, right? Because it's an outdoor event and we've got to have some weather. The results were very good for us as a venue. Now I will say Jason Aldean is one of the top 5 performers in the country in terms of putting on his event. But to get that level of talent every year would be very difficult. We'd have to sell a lot more tickets than what we did there. But there was a lot of learning, and I would say there's a lot of motivation to figure out how to do this more often, maybe with some acts that are maybe less expensive than Jason. And I don't know how else to say that, but he was terrific, right? I don't want to take anything away from him except he's not a cheap date.
Okay. So would you share with listeners, you have 2 other venues, the Stone Prairie project, if you could walk people through that, and then also
Yes.
Round Lake Farms.
Well, yeah, and thanks for the question, Rick, because it's all part of, and I'd say selfishly because I'm kind of doing this, and some people look at me crooked-eyed, like my board of directors look at me crooked-eyed, like, what are you doing here? But so we are a big footprint in Brillion, and I have said to our team many times that, people talk about their corporate campus, and I want our executive team to think about Brillion as our campus and the whole city. Not that we want to own it, not that we want to, take control of it, just that we want it to be a very pleasant place for our employees to, because they're going to be here 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And I want this, I'd like them to think there's a great place to get in my car and go eat. That's, just 2 blocks away. I don't have to drive to, something 10 or 15 or 20 minutes away, like we might have to. So, Round Lake Farms first, that was a property my father owned. And, when Dad passed away in 2015, it was part of an estate settlement, and I bought it so that we could keep it in the family in terms of me versus siblings who live outside of Wisconsin, and we could clean up the estate. And I was out there and I looked at it and I forgot how beautiful it was. I used to, run around that farm, not farming, but I did actually bale hay once as a young man, and remembered why I was enjoying lawnmowers more than baling hay. But it's right on a small lake, Round Lake. And the way we've set it up, and then as you look to the east, the lake is right there. But as you look to the west, that's the Nordic Center today. And that's how the vision for Nordic Center came about. I kept looking west saying, this is a beautiful piece of property, rolling hills. It's not your flat Wisconsin. It's the farmers that were leasing it would tell me that it's not the best and easiest to farm because of the hills, and it didn't have the greatest soil. So Round Lake Farms became the Nordic Center and became just this beautiful, pristine. And we're on it's roughly 300 acres. And there's a flyway there for migrating birds, that we preserve now, 90 acres of grass lake right there. So it's all part of the whole scene. Stone Prairie is a different setting. It's actually located between our two manufacturing plants, and I've invested a lot of time and money and resources in a conservation effort to preserve the roughly 200 acres between our two plants. We could have developed it as an industrial park. We could have done some other things. I chose to just build nature trails, and we have lots of all kinds of what I'll call conservation efforts. I'm over 20,000 trees, and I shouldn't say I'm sorry. We have planted over 20,000 trees. We have nice trails that go through woods between there. Stone Prairie is in the middle of all that. And what it was is I happened to be looking at the property, and there was an original farmhouse there. There was an original farm, and the history on it goes back to the Schneider family in Wisconsin, in the middle to later part of the 1800s. We bought the property to have just a buffer on our plants. I saw the ruins of the farmhouse, and I saw the ruins of the barn, and I had been traveling around places like Turkey and historic preservation projects, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of interesting to prop the foundations of the farm and the farmhouse, use those sites, and then we built, just imagine timber frames over the top of the foundation, and then what I also did was renewed the concrete floor, but under the concrete, I heated the floor. So the concrete is heated, which extends the season to be in an outdoor facility. And then the timber frame has drop down screens that can block wind, rain, driving snow or rain. They can hold up to about a 60-mile-an-hour wind. And then a fireplace inside. So we can do winter events there, and you can be very comfortable with a heated floor, heated roof or ceiling, with heat lamps, and then a fireplace. On a wintry day, you can be very comfortable inside there without being in your house. So we do events out there, weddings, corporate events. We do our business meetings with our customers there because we have a lot of acreage to mow grass. So we demonstrate our product there and we do a lot of things at Stone Prairie.
So speaking of Round Lake Farms and Stone Prairie and the efforts there and the Ariens Nordic Center, you're going to be bring it back to this event that we've mentioned a couple of times, this day-long event on November 13th. And it's going to be focusing on the area's success in enterprise, entrepreneurship, and industry. And in addition to you, Dan, we have 4 other CEOs presenting, as well as the EVP of Innovation from Sargento, the CFO from Grande Cheese, former member of Congress. And your portion of the day is going to be focusing on the question, why Brillion? Why this area of the state and in Wisconsin? So would you provide listeners a little bit of a highlight or two of what you'll be covering that day at that event?
Yeah, it's like the tour I described. A friend who I walked through our plant yesterday that, his finishing statement was, who knew this was all in Brillion, this automated manufacturing system. And I think I want to talk really about why we're still here, why we think Brillion is a very important part of Northeast Wisconsin. We don't get mentioned much, surrounded by, wonderful assets like Green Bay Packers, terrific businesses like Pierce and Oshkosh Truck over to the west of us, Merck Marine, things like that. The Kohlers, the Kohler family and what they've done in just to the south of us. So it's hard to get any attention on Brillion. But our geography is really perfectly located, directly halfway between I-43, I-41 on US Highway 10 that extends, both of those interstates. Logistically, we think this is a good location for a lot of different things. And so back to Stone Prairie, Round Lake Farms, the Ariens Nordic Center, and other things we're doing in the community here. I just think our whole plan is once we build these kinds of events, facilities, these kinds of resources in Brillion, we're gonna answer the question of why Brillion, because it's a perfect location. for multifamily workers. Love to have you come and work at Ariens, but if the other spouse in the family is working in Appleton or Green Bay, it's a very easy commute. So I'll speak to the manufacturing system. I'll speak to our hospitality system. I'll talk to our the other investments we've made in Brilliant.
And the event itself, it's going to be an all-day event, and it's going to be held in Round Lake Farms, the main building. Could you maybe just describe that real quickly for listeners? What the venue there is like?
Yeah, the Round Lake Farms building is really based on the original farm that was there. The silo is still up, so we built around the silo because the barn itself was crumbling. The upper level where you walk in is just a big open room, like you would have in a hay mow, right? So the upper part of the barn was storage for hay. Now it's a Doug fir, all wood construction with stone wrap on the outside. I personally think it's a beautiful building. There's a great big walkout porch that faces Round Lake. We're having a wedding there tomorrow night. There's weddings. I think all through the summer we had roughly 4 weddings a weekend on average. So our hospitality staff is there to take care of all these events. The lower level of Round Lake Farm is there's a very nice bar I named the Tiller. Sort of a throwback to Henry Ariens, and a private dining area down there. And then you walk out there to the lake. There's a couple of piers that you can walk out to the water. A lot of brides are taking pictures there. A lot of people are there just, reflecting and talking about the business event they might have had at Nordic Center or Round Lake Farm. And I think your event will be up on the upper floor, Rick, and we'll tee it up with the room set up for as many as we get. And I'd like to hope we can fill the whole building. That's I don't know what the capacity is for your event, Rick, but it's we'll be ready to handle whatever you can throw at us. And I will add, I'm really excited about the fact that you're organizing these kinds of things for us in Calumet County, Rick. I think it's a tremendous amount of energy I see out of the economic development group at Calumet County. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's time for our final break. You are listening to Biz Talk or Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk. I'd like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk or Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Haling & Associates. Haling & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but look ahead to manage future taxes and help you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Haling & Associates, personal connection, positive results. A special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to the Business News, you should. The paper is delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund with the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. And of course, we'd like to thank Dan Ariens for coming on today and talking to us about Ariens Company. And for those of you who want more information, we direct you to the website too. They've got a great section on the history in the museum, and you can learn a lot about what the company is doing. Dan, as we wrap up, I'd like to maybe get your input on if you had to look back over your career and could go back and talk to yourself in 1992 when you were in North Carolina, what advice would you give yourself?
Boy, that's a deep question. It just from a just purely business standpoint, there's so much you don't know in 1992 or when I was a young, 20-year-old. It's very hard to say what I would do different. What I have learned over the years is how important the right culture of the business is. And, when it's not right, you have to move fast to get it right. So, when you have something in your gut that you think is the right thing to do, then take action, and try and go faster, because when things are healthy or unhealthy, it really comes down to the right leader that's actually, driving, whatever change or opportunity or pushing the business forward. And as we get older and, the tools we have are better and smarter, like as we get to the world of AI, we're just going to have to be faster and faster and faster in the things that we do.
Okay. And as AriensCo moves on into the future, I know you've talked about looking at where the fifth generation comes on and where you go. What do you think will happen in the Brilliant community? What do you see for the future of Brilliant and Ariens?
Well, I see Brilliant growing. I think adding housing, adding more folks to this community. I see what we have as a vision in the next decade coming to life. So I see this community growing, and just the fact that we've got our schools in a really good place means that we can grow. If the schools are good, then people will come.
Okay. So Dan, we'd like to thank you very much. Ariens is one of the true great success stories in this area that people should be aware of, and we really appreciate having you come on and talk about all the things that are happening. And I know Rick is really looking forward to the event on November 13th too, so that'll be great. So for our listeners, thanks again for listening to Biz Talk with SCORE. If you go to our website at biztalkwithscore.com, you'll find this episode later next week and episodes from the last 6 years or so of shows. Appreciate you all listening, and thanks for listening to Biz Talk with SCORE and WHBY for over 25 years now. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.